Spring is such a great time of the year, and we're going to be doing something super fun today. We are going to be planting roses, and not just one application, but we're going to do two. We are going to be planting bare root roses, and we are going to be transplanting a climbing rose into a container so it can grow up on this beautiful trellis that my husband made. Hi, I'm Sonia with Suburban Gardening, and putting roses in my garden is absolutely a delight for me. I inherited about 15 roses when I moved into this property, but unfortunately they had been pretty neglected, so several of them had died. And I'm going to be replacing one today with this bare root rose. It is called a cathedral bell. I think it's going to look beautiful. It kind of reminds me of a David Austin type of a rose. So I'm going to be going over how you would work with the bare root rose. And then I have a beautiful pinata climbing rose, stunning blooms. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to take it out of one small pot, put it in a bigger one so it can just liven up this beautiful area we have in our garden. Let's start with the bare root roses. Now, it's kind of late for a bare root rose. It's early April. I'm in Zone 10, Southern California, and I can plant roses all year long here. In the heat of the summer, it's a little risky, but a bare root rose, usually this is a January, February thing, but I was kind of happy to come across them. I picked it up at Sam's. I just couldn't resist, but I needed a couple. This one is going over to my daughter's house, but this beautiful cathedral bell is going to be staying in my yard. So when you get a bare root rose from the store, it is tied up right here with a metal holder. The first thing you need to do when you get home is untangle that metal holder and put some water down into your rose. Try not to give it too much, but definitely give it something. We don't know how long they've been in these containers, and they will start to dry out. So I was very happily surprised to see beautiful leaves coming out of these bare root roses. It tells me that they're happy and they're still alive and they're going to do great. So next thing we need to do, of course, is get it out of this container. Now I take pictures of these so I'll remember which rose I have until I can get a tag down into the soil. The other thing that I need to do is I need to cut this open. So the most important thing for me right now is I don't want to damage this very tender little rose. And I don't want to damage myself because this thing has thorns. So I've cut that open, and now you can see most of the bare root roses, they have paper inside here. Now these roots are coming out of the paper already. This needs to get in the ground quickly. The other thing that you do is you're going to take off all of this paper very carefully. If you can save any of those little roots, that would be a positive. Oh yeah, we got quite a few. And then you're going to shake off all of this sawdust. Now this sawdust is pretty damp because I've been pouring water down in here. Once you get all of that done, you'll see where the roots are. Now this has a very nice root system already coming up. This is the ball of the plant, and then this right here is where they did the grafting. You never want to put the graft underneath the soil, so we'll keep that in mind as we're planting. This rose over here, my cathedral bell, has been sitting in water for about 4 hours. It's highly recommended that when you get your bare root rose and you're ready to plant it, don't take it out till you're ready to plant it. You soak them in water so they can really hydrate. This will give them such a great start when you finally put them in the soil. So you can see this has a wonderful root system to it. The graft is higher up on this one. It's right up here. So I'm going to be very careful that I don't bury it below that. A few things that I'm going to be using today are basically some organic fertilizer. Now, I like the rose tone. I always fertilize with rose tone. Everything in my rose bed benefits from it. So we'll definitely be using that today. I went and I dug up some worms. We're going to be putting this in the container That's going to really help in the long run. And then I made some banana coffee compost. All this is some coffee, used coffee, and chopped up old bananas. And I mix it up in here. Now, I made a video on this if you guys want to check it out. But I'm telling you, I learned how to do this at the Los Angeles County Arboretum. The curator of the rose department there did this, and it makes your roses just wonderful. What it does is, of course, it adds potassium into the soil, but it attracts worms and it causes that microorganisms down in the soil to become their own little ecosystem. So it's just going on down there after you've long planted your plants. The other thing I want to do is I'm going to be using some companion plants. Now, I'm going to take you over and show you the big pot in just a minute that we're going to transplant that climbing rose. But it's a really big pot, and I think it just is going to look too bright and ugly. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put these alyssum. And the reason I chose alyssum is because I'm going to be asking a lot of that climbing rose. I'm going to be giving it a lot of fertilizer, but I don't want to put a plant in there that's going to be robbing my rose of nutrients. Alyssum have very shallow roots. It'll just stay on the top and it won't bother the rose at all, but it will make it nice, soft looking pot instead of that hard white that you're going to be seeing in just a minute. This is the rose bed where I'm going to be planting that beautiful cathedral bell. This is where I have a lot of my roses. I think we have up to 12 in this particular garden bed right here. But the first thing I need to do is amend this soil. Now there's just a really deep hole right here. It's about I don't know, 2 feet deep, maybe 1.5 feet deep. And I want to make sure that my rose is going to fit in there. So let's give it a test. Absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect. It's going to have no troubles whatsoever. Now, I'm going to be putting my rose tone down in here. And I'm also going to be using some garden soil. We have absolutely terrible soil here. It's all clay. And so that little pile of clay soil, I'm not going to put that back into the hole. I'm going to use garden soil. Not potting soil, but garden soil. The next thing I need to do is put in a couple of shakes of my compote, my banana coffee compote. And my worms. I'm going to pull you in a little bit closer so you can see how I plant this bare root rose. There's a specific thing we need to do to make sure that the soil is up all around the roots and it's nice and sturdy in the ground. What I'm going to be checking for right now is I need to make sure that this right here, this right before the root ball, is even with the ground. I do not want it too low and I do not want it too high. So once I get it in there just like that, that'll be perfect. So the ground is here and my root ball's here. I think I need to go a little bit lower. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to be making a type of a cone down there in the soil. Build it up in the middle because I want the soil to be up inside here. We don't want to leave any air pockets. So here's the ground and here. I think that's just exactly the right height. So I'm going to be filling in the dirt, making extra sure that I get the dirt pushed inside of those roots with no air pockets. I'm going to firm this down in here really well. And I can always come by later and add some more soil if I feel like I didn't get enough in there. I think she looks absolutely beautiful there. Aren't those lavender blooms going to look great with these very bright yellow gazinias? Oh my goodness. Here is that big wall I was telling you about in this wonderful trellis that my husband made for me. We are going to take this lovely pinata climbing rose that I have in this small pot, and we are going to move it over to this big pot and attach it to the trellis. I'm going to be using some premium potting soil here because I expect this rose will be in that pot for many years to come. I have seen this application done in many fancy gardens, so I'm very encouraged that it is going to grow and cover this whole trellis. The first thing that I need to do is I need to unhook this climbing rose from this tiny little trellis. So it only has a few little clips because it's only been growing for, like a month because I just trimmed it back really well. The only difficult part about doing this particular application is that I don't want to lose any of these canes. Now, these canes are coming out beautiful and I just love them. So I want to try to keep them intact if I can. If I lose one, it'll be all right. I'll go ahead and, trim it up. But I'm taking off all of these little clips that I use for my roses, and I want to make sure it's completely loose. So when I try to lift it up out of this pot, nothing sticks and I get poked. I'm going to take my garden knife and put it all around the pot so I can loosen up those roots. Normally, when I'm trying to get a plant out of a pot, one this size, I just put it on the grass and roll it and push on it. But I can't do that with this one. So I'm going to try to be a little more ginger with this one. Okay. I'm so glad that rose came out of that pot pretty easily. I didn't really want to have to fight with it. So now what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to put it in this big pot. Now I already poured some really good potting soil in here. I'm going to add the fertilizer. But the most important thing I need to do is to make sure that the rose is sitting up high enough in the pot. A lot of times when you're repotting things, you'll notice that after time they sink, and then you have like 4 inches from the top to the soil. So I am going to pot this up a little higher because I know over time it's going to sink down into the pot, but not too high. I still need to be able to water it. Also, just on a note, this rose will be getting irrigation. I have a little irrigation tube that I fed over to here. So it will be getting watered regularly because these pinatas, they really like to have water. It looks great in here. I think this is really going to work out. But before I put the canes up on the trellis, I wanted to put in my alyssum. Now these alyssum, I only have them because I had a project that I did earlier and I had 3 alyssum left over. So this is just a perfect place to put them. They'll look so pretty hanging over the side of this pot. I found a worm. That's fantastic. Oh, there's a couple of them. Definitely going to let these worms down into the soil. They will cause this pot to be its own little ecosystem. The other thing I really like about the alyssum is that it's not going to fight for attention from the pinata roses. These will make a nice white color. It'll just be sort of like a background color. And then the pinata roses will just be bright and orange and yellow and just gorgeous. I'll put a picture up so you can see what they look like. I like using these wires that have sort of the rubber over them. I'll put a link below. But this way I can tie them on. It doesn't have to be too tight because these guys are going to get bigger and bigger. And then I don't want to have to keep bothering with them. I just want them to stay happy. So I did a video on how to prune your roses, and this particular rose was in there on how to prune climbing roses. It is a little different. Now I've cut these canes down really short because I knew that I was going to be putting them on a big trellis. But next year it's going to be different. I'm going to leave the canes a little bit longer. So I'm going to go ahead and put these on and we'll step back and look at our beautiful work. When this pinata climbing rose is full of blooms, it is going to be stunning on this big white wall. You can already see a bud coming out, so lots of hope for the future for this beautiful rose. And the alyssum is going to hang over and soften that pot. Just gorgeous. Both of our rose bushes are tucked in and I watered them in, and I think they're just going to be so happy. If you've noticed where I planted these roses, it's right in the area where we do the most outdoor living. We barbecue out here, we sit out here and have our coffee. So I put them in a place where they would be very prominent and we would just be able to enjoy them all through the season. I wanted to just mention that there are other companion plants that grow really well with roses. I've got a lavender right here that the bees are just loving. Smells amazing. That's a very good companion plant as well. They don't compete for nutrients and so on. Marigolds are another really good one. They help keep bugs away and they also look really pretty. So if you look around, there's some really good companion plants to go with your roses. So right now, when the roses are little and they're not blooming yet, it's nice to have some other flowers next to them as well. Well, you guys, there's always so much to talk about in the garden, and I had so much fun planting those roses today. So I'll bring you back for a peek when they're all in full bloom. But thanks for stopping by, you guys. I'll see you next time.